Greetings, everyone. It is GleeCon, and I'm back with you again with another episode of Lore of Warcraft. We have been on a journey together, and on our last episode, we went through World of Warcraft Classic, some of the Hillsbrad region with our Forsaken Warlock. We will most likely be coming back and hitting up some more Hillsbrad as the Alliance in the future, but we helped concoct a potion. We also went to the same setting, which is actually pretty much identical as what you would experience when you do the Old Hillsbrad region, Old Hillsbrad slash Durnhold Keep. Escape from Durnhold Keep, I believe, is what it's called. It's the one you can do in the Caverns of Time. Well, this is the first foray you would have into that little area where you kill syndicate members, which we haven't even talked too much about who the syndicate even are. We rescued a couple holdout or whatever leftover orc captives. It's actually pretty fun. We have also been reading through tons of side content because as we play Warcraft, we've kind of reached a state where we've dried up reading the actual books. We've read most of them. Most of them are prehistorical or pre-game history. But there are still some to go, and there's tons of weird side errata. And we've been reading the whole series of source book tomes for the Warcraft, the role-playing game, and now World of Warcraft, the role-playing game, which are Dungeons and Dragons. I think they're third edition. Yeah, third edition, which is not my favorite edition. It's where the game starts to go sideways. I don't know who owns it. It looks like Sword and Sorcery, some company called Sword and Sorcery owns this. I've actually been reading the history of Dungeons and Dragons, so I'm curious at this time period, which was probably at this point we're getting to be around. This is right. This book came out right around the same time as Wrath of the Lich King was dropping. Don't remember. I think that's 2008, right around there. So 15 years ago, and I think maybe Wizards of the Coast owned it by then. I don't know. There's a transitional period because it was owned by TSR, and then they went through a management fiasco, and they ended up getting bought, and it saved Dungeons and Dragons by Wizards of the Coast. So we're sometime in that period. But stay a while and listen as we kick off the final book in this series. It is called Dark Factions. We've got some dark faction-y looking weird scythes with hanging incense mace things, a triple-headed Forsaken, I don't know. Hopefully we'll get some cool lore. Let's check it out. Stay a while and listen. Poor Kane. So this is just the legalese. It looks like we are going to have 10 chapters, so we'll probably have at least 10 episodes. Skimming through, we're going to go today over some, on this episode, the new races. There are some new class options. We'll probably bust that out in one episode also. The book's a little over 200 pages long. Then there's a third chapter, Prestige classes, so pretty much par for the course what we've been using. Then there's chapter 4 on magic. Usually we can get some cool lore in that, so that'll be a lore chapter that we do. Technology, it looks very short. We will either make a short episode or go right through that episode. Then we have history and culture. This one is probably one that will break down into multiple episodes. It'll slow us down. Factions, it looks like there are a bunch. This book is called Dark Factions, so this is the majority of the book, and that's probably where we'll spend. I don't know that we'll bust all through that in one episode. We'll probably have to break that one down. Finally, there's a little bit of a monster compendium at the end with some creatures, and then a couple adventures. So we'll probably bust through 9 in its own chapter, 10 in its own chapter, and that will be the end. So really, it's when we get to the 6th and 7th chapter where we'll start to have fun. So for the next next 4-ish episodes, it's probably going to be more Dungeons and Dragons heavy. the next 4 or so readings. So here's the introduction. We're not going to go through. They do talk about this website. It is defunct. You can't go there anymore. Like I've mentioned before, it's like a vampire. It's like a defunct vampire RPG. Here they break down some things more. Our list of allies grows thin. Nothing, yeah, because they're running out, and this is the last book in the series. It does tell you there's a cool fiction spot, but they're saying that that's the sidebars. So this one will have some cool flavor text stories we'll get to read as we go through. There's class options. Nothing can stop us now, and that's it. Bring pandemonium for the prestige classes. Gather the darkness for magic. The random explosions will continue until morale improves. This is a Naga, a Murloc, probably a Dark Iron Dwarf, and maybe one of the Dragonkin, I think is what they're called. Filling the knowledge gaps, a place for everyone. I like fighting best, a dark bestiary, and I expect you to die. So now we're gonna do chapter 1, new races. It says our list of allies grow thin, so we're gonna cover Wormkin, aka Dragonspawn, Dark Iron Dwarfs, Murlocs, both male and female Naga because they're so different from one another, Pandarin, Quilboar, Satyr, and Tuskar. All races that at one point or another have been argued, hey, why don't we have these in WoW? So Dragonspawn, they've kind of addressed that by making Drakthir, but they are not exactly dragon. It's like they wanted to make Dragonspawn and solve the mount problem at the same time, so they just created a new race that was basically Dragonspawn. Because now who's going to be saying, hey, let's make Dragonspawn? Who cares at this point? The Dragonflights of Azeroth are not without retainers and assistants. Noble creatures serve the dragons with absolute loyalty, acting as footmen, soldiers, assistants, and companions. They're endowed with many of the dragon's mystic abilities and virtuous qualities. Exactly how they came into being is a mystery to many, though dragons may have the answers. Yeah, I don't think we have the answers yet. At least I don't know them. Each Wormkin is born into a specific flight of draconic servitude. Each dragon spawn race is shaped to serve a specific dragon flight, and each dragon spawn exhibits hereditary traits that represent the dragon flight he serves. Though they have dragon-like qualities, these creatures are not descended from dragons. Instead, they are distant kinfolk, descended from humanoids who spent their lives close to the dragons and took on the qualities of their masters after generations of service. As a result, Dragonspawn are gifted with unique advantages, including immunity to their Dragonflight's breath weapon. Now, if we want to take a page from Dungeons & Dragons, it's specifically like the Margaret Weiss, Tracy Hickman Dragonlance tree, there were half-dragons and made by dragons that polymorphed into human form, and the dragons of WoW can do that. Took on a mortal lover, made a child, and so maybe these Dragonspawn come from that. Wormkin Dragonspawn are the least of the Dragonspawn. So this is the kind that we're showing on this one. They are tough and hardy, but not particularly intelligent. Yeah, so you lose charisma, but gain a little bit of strength, and you like to be a warrior. Most lack self-motivation, requiring a leader to give them specific instructions and commands. Dragonspawn have no social mobility. Well, that sucks. Dragonspawn serve their draconic masters eagerly, considering the task an enormous honor. No Dragonspawn breaks with his patron Dragonflight or strikes out alone. They follow the commands of their dragon masters willingly, and a dragon might command a Dragonspawn to undertake a mission by himself, or perhaps join forces with a group of heroes. The lower bodies of Dragonspawn are much like dragons: scaled hide, 4 legs, and a tail. They have humanoid torsos with long, thick arms and scaled draconic heads. Their hides and draconic features are the color of their patron flight: black, blue, bronze, green, red. Dragonspawn have similar physiques regardless of the flight they belong to. Most Dragonspawn bear a mark upon their breastplates or shields that identifies their draconic mentor or patron, giving honor to the dragon who trained them. Armor and clothing reflect the scale coloring of the Dragonspawn's patron Dragonflight. Dragonspawn can be found wherever dragons dwell. For example, the Burning Steppes teem with black dragons, drakes, and other servants of the Black Dragonflight. In Grim Batal, where the red dragon Alexstrasza was once imprisoned, there now awaits a host of red Dragonspawn legionnaires, eager to protect the remnants of the red Dragonflight, and so on and so forth. We know, like in the Nexus, there are a ton of blue ones. I actually strongly recommend, if you still play retail, There's a cool. I just finished. There's a bronze dragonflight and blue dragonflight kind of like mini campaign. They're pretty cool and pretty heavy on the lore. And if you just play for the lore, and like I said, you're still up to going through dragonflight. I do recommend it. Affiliation is independent, and we'll get there 1 year eventually, as on this show. They're independent. They're just loyal to their specific dragonflights. They revere dragons, particularly their own dragonflights, the dragon aspects, Alexstrasza the Lifebinder, Malygos the Spellweaver, Ysera the Dreamer, Nosdormu the Timeless, and Deathwing. Once Neltharion the Orth Warder receive special attention. Dragonspawn names are harsh and simple with no family to speak of. They are usually referred to by their place in the hierarchy, much like military rank, and the name they were given at birth. Dragonspawn adventurers often refer to themselves simply by their given names. So now that's a cool picture of one. It looks almost wizard-like, but maybe it's fighting with a staff. Actually, my arms warrior on Classic right now is you fighting with a staff. Okay, so they're a large quadruped, which comes with some penalties and bonuses, like penalties to attack and armor, but bonuses to grappling and stuff like that. It's harder to hide. They have the same base land speed. That's ridiculous. They should be a little faster, I would think. 4 legs, and they're larger sized. They're monstrous humanoids, so they have to be treated by monsters as spells. They have dark vision. They gain immunities to, say, the frightful presence of dragons and the elemental breath weapon of their type of flight. It says they technically have cold and fire subtypes, which effectively negate one another. Chromatic dragon spawn. I guess we're calling the black and red the chromatic. No, what about green? It doesn't even make sense. Okay. So they end up having resistance to acid, cold, and fire. And they take a penalty to intellect and charisma. I don't know why why we're differentiating chromatic. What does that take out bronze? Because all the rest are technically colored. Maybe we're saying like they've got all the colors. Okay. Some wormkin can become scholars and learn other languages. They take racial levels. They prefer to be a warrior, but I think they could be other things as well. They can take levels in their wormkin class, and as they do, their strength and stamina continues to improve. They gain the ability to don armor and pick up weapons. Then as you keep going, they get even stronger. Their natural armor improves. They can wear heavier weapons and armor. And finally, they get a final strength and stamina buff again. Meanwhile, all their saves, because this is the only saves they used to have in 3rd edition. And the heavy armor goes up. So that's it. They can just equip more and more stuff. All right, that's it for them. Not a lot of lore. Dark Iron Dwarfs. I think we're going to get the lore in those other chapters, because this is just kind of physical, superficial descriptions. About 3 centuries ago, war rocked Cosmodan. The Bronzebeard, Wildhammer, and Dark Iron clans clashed in the bitter war of the 3 hammers, and eventually the Bronzebeards drove the Wildhammers and Dark Irons out of their city. Not content to establish a new homeland, Thaurissan, the sorcerer king for the Dark Irons, led his people against both Ironforge and the Wildhammers of Grimbatal. This was a mistake, as it caused Ironforge and Grimbatal to join forces against him. They defeated his attacking forces and marched on his stronghold. In desperation, Thaurissan summoned a blazing entity. He made a horrible mistake. The creature who answered the summons was Ragnaros the Fire Lord. Ragnaros' cataclysmic arrival shattered the land, scoured the armies, and ended the war. The Fire Lord then descended into what is now Blackrock Depths, exerting his will over the remaining Dark Irons and bending them to his will. Now the Dark Irons serve Ragnaros, but nurture their hatred against the Bronzebeard and Wildhammer dwarves, who defeated them centuries ago. Just a few generations for the long-lived dwarves. The appearance, Dark Iron dwarves resemble their Bronzebeard cousins, but their skin is pale or an ugly gray. Their hair and beards are black, bluish, white, or orange, and their eyes glow with a flame-like luminance that recalls their fiery overlord. The Dark Irons dwell in Blackrock Depths. They battle the Black Dragon Nefarian's forces for control of Blackrock Mountain, With the devastation of the Third War, many Dark Irons returned to the surface, ranging across the Arathi Highlands and the Searing Gorge for their master. That makes me think about how everyone can be Dark Irons now. So, and all of those other side races. Not sure how I feel about this. On the one hand, like my son, who does not have the devotion or dedication to grind out lengthy achievements, he's delighted that you can fly most places, that you can unlock all these races he's seen me play, and he thinks they're cool. But for someone like me who I grinded out every Pathfinder achievement when they came out, I did all of the things needed to unlock and unlock all of those side races. It does sort of cheapen those, so what are you going to do? I mean, I guess ultimately, who cares? But, like, it does make you feel, I guess you want some bragging rights. Maybe you just want to be like, yeah, well, I did it when it was hard. I don't know. But I guess cool. Everybody, in case you didn't know, they've unlocked that to where now everyone can. I think you just have to reach a max level on one character, and then you can have all the races or something like that. I don't know. All right. Or maybe, but you still have to do the quest you would get from unlocking them. So you do have to. I think you still have to do a little mini quest line. Okay. They're independent. Ragnaros' motives are unknown, but the Dark Irons serve his will. Others pursue their own agendas, and when these don't clash with Ragnaros', many relish the opportunity to cross blades with their ancestral enemies, the Bronzebeard and Wildhammer dwarves. Dark Irons are evil, selfish, and arrogant. They don't get along well with others, so their allies are few. However, rumors say that they and Mechgineer Thermoplug, head of the Leper Gnomes and fallen Nomergons, seek an alliance. The Dark Irons don't place much emphasis on faith, but as they are servants of Ragnaros, they tend to revere fire and fire elementals, particularly big, powerful fire elementals like Ragnaros. They follow similar naming practices to the Bronzebeard, like Beld, Franclorn, Lochtos, Grawl, or Aster, Welia, Angerforge, Dark Bargainer. That's kind of cool. Fire Smite. Look at this weird Dark Iron. He looks chody. So they get extra agility, but they lose charisma. I don't know if I agree with that stat sense, but okay. I guess the charisma, because they're evil. They're medium. They're slow as dwarves. Dwarves aren't quite as slow as that in current iterations of D&D. They have dark vision, stone cunning, weapon familiarity with dwarven weapons. They're strong against poison. They're good at appraising and crafting. So they're typical dwarves. They can speak Calamag in addition to their other things. They can pick up racial levels. They like to be a rogue more than anything else. They have a D8. They can be playable characters. They have fire magic affinity, a bonus weapon proficiency with like blunderbusses, dwarven stuff. Same thing with the armor. They have resistance to fire. As they level up, they gain extra bonuses with like a racial favored enemy against the other dwarven types. They gain fire magic resistance and a stronger affinity. Continuing to level up, they gain stamina, more of those dwarven weapons, and their fire resistance goes up, and they get a little bit more agility along with more weapons and more fire resistance. Murlocs. Imagine how cool it would be to play Murlocs in Dragonflight, where you go do the Murpocalypse. Like, there's a couple little fun side missions that pop up from time to time where you actually become a Murloc. So I know that they've toyed around with the idea of how fun it would be. It would be cool. I feel like just do it, Blizzard. Rip the Band-Aid off. Just let people have fun and be Murlocs. Imagine how many Murloc characters would be running around. I mean, other than the fact that they're goofy, like, what could go wrong? Just do it. Murlocs are fish-like humanoids who dwell throughout Azeroth. They hate most other races and attack intruders on sight, viciously defending their territories. Okay, make some, like, neutral Murlocs. Most other races consider Murlocs a nuisance, but not a real danger, as Murlocs tend to be weak individually, and their tribes are not large enough to pose a threat to the civilized world. Still, to a group of adventurers who accidentally stumble into a Murloc village, Murlocs can be deadly. Yeah, they can. Murlocs appeared on land only recently, leading some to speculate that the race is newly formed, or at least their ability to move about on land is a new development. Some experts believe that the Murloc race in its current form is far, far older than this, perhaps predating even the Kaldorei Empire of 10,000 years ago. If this is true, then they must have good reason for clambering onto dry land. Yeah, like imagine there's just a swerve and a deep reveal that Murlocs are the progenitor race, and everyone is descended from Murlocs, and yeah, like that's it. There's a secret Murloc society. Many Murloc tribes exist, and the tribes get along with each other reasonably well. Yeah, and they're basically like the ones we fight are like the leper gnome version of true Murlocs, and they're as varied as humans. There's buff ones, there's smart ones, there's I mean, come on. Let's make a whole Murloc expansion. Multiple tribes in the same area are organized into clans, and every so often a clan meets to discuss issues of importance, though exactly what is important to a Murloc is a matter of some debate. Murlocs look like a fish crossed with humans. They stand 6 feet tall but walk with a hunch, making them appear shorter. Their hands and feet are webbed, and fins run along their heads and backs. Their mouths are wide and set with numerous sharp teeth. Their eyes are large and set on opposite sides of their heads. Murlocs are scaled in almost every color imaginable: purple, orange, green, yellow, many others. Their bodies are marked with patterns as well. Many Murlocs bear stripes, spots, swirls, and similar markings. Their bellies are often of a different lighter color than the rest of their bodies. In addition, Murloc scales shine like fish scales in the light. Turned at certain angles, they glimmer with all the colors of a rainbow. Yeah, see, perfect. It's perfect for Pride Month. We could just make a Murloc campaign. Murloc playable class. As far as anyone knows, Murlocs don't have a single reason they call their homeland, but they exist on coastlines throughout the world. Azeroth, Kalimdor, Northrend, all those tribes of Murlocs. I don't know if I can't remember if there's Murlocs in Pandaria, or I think there's like Gorloks or something like that in the new one. They live in both freshwater and saltwater, and many tribes exist inland around lakes and marshes, and they are particularly plentiful in the South Seas. They're independent. Murlocs hate all other races, although they occasionally work with powerful aquatic races like Naga out of fear or misguided religious fervor. Each Murloc tribe has its own agenda, though scholars don't agree on whether these agendas are ever more than just existing and killing anyone who comes close. Every once in a while, a Murloc leaves the tribe to embark upon adventure, but a Murloc joining the Alliance or Horde is unheard of. For now, Murloc faith is strange. Some accounts report that religion plays a dominant role in their society, but they do not revere a common deity, at least as far as anyone knows. Murloc beliefs incorporate powerful creatures that live around them, and their pantheons are dynamic, changing as the surroundings do. A tribe may venerate a whale, or may even raise its status to whale god until a giant sea serpent drives it away, at which point their beliefs change to incorporate the sea serpent as their chief object of the reverence. Some whispers assert that all Murlocs honor an entity above all these others. Accounts of Murlocs occasionally speaking of the one in the deeps is supposedly evidence of this. Whether this is true or not, and if it is, whether the one in the deeps is simply a representation of the ocean or if it is an actual entity is unknown. Oh my gosh, dude, this is ripe for the Murloc expansion. The Murloc, and they could call it like Murlocalypse or whatever. Like, they need to do this. I want this more than any other expansion. Don't give me another Dragonflight. Don't give me another race I didn't ask for. If fish gave themselves names, they would be similar to Murloc names. Their names contain many wet, soft sounds. SHs, Ls, and Ms are common. Their tribe names recall something of the tribe's accomplishments, appearance, history, or tradition, such as Moglu, Schlesh, or Gloom. And the tribes are Bluegill, Blind Light, Grey Mist, Salt Spittle. So they gain additional to agility and spirit, which is wisdom, but they lose charisma. They're medium-sized. They are not that good on fast on land, akin to a dwarf, but they're faster in the water. They're considered monstrous humanoids that are aquatic. They have dark vision. They're amphibious. They do have dehydration, so we would have to get rid of the dehydration trait to make them characters. Of course, they can swim. They speak Nurglish, and they can also possibly speak some other things like Naja or Zandali. They like to be scouts. As they pick Murloc levels, it looks like they have, I guess that's probably less gold than most starting classes. They can, as they level up, they gain extra stealth, new Murloc weapon proficiencies, nets, There we go. Tridents, and then eventually nets. And their dark vision and swim speed continues to grow. They get natural armor, extra concentration checks, extra stealth. Then they start to get more comfortable on land. And finally, all of those things basically improve. All right, now going along with the Murlocs are the Naga. This is another one I've been beating the drum for a while. Yeah, sure, make them a playable character class too. In the same expansion, Naga are insidious snake-like humanoids who dwell deep beneath the ocean. They have an ancient and complex culture steeped in arrogance and arcane magic. Long ago, at the end of the War of the Ancients, the Well of Eternity, the source of all arcane magic on Azeroth, imploded. The well was destroyed, and much of the land around it crashed to the bottom of the sea, shattering the world in the process. The force of the implosion smashed a hole in the ocean's floor, revealing the planet's molten core. This crack still exists. It's called the Rift, and Azeroth's molten interior is open to the ocean, heating the nearby waters. Yeah, make the Murloc either Alliance or Horde and give the other faction Naga. Come on, writers, craft a story around that. I mean, the Naga, it's easy because they're night elves, so you could either make that be a connection to Alliance, or you can make that be a reason why they don't work with the Alliance, kind of like the Blood Elves. And then just make up a story. Whatever you decide, make up a story to have the Murlocs go to the other faction. Many Night Elves sank to the bottom along with their cities. However, they were no longer Keldarai. These Night Elves were cursed, and during the Sundering, they became the water-breathing Naga. On the ocean floor, the Well of Eternity left behind residual energies over 10,000 years. These energies mutated the surrounding sea life, including the Naga. Now the Naga make their presence known again on the surface and seek to retake their place as the rulers of the world. Naga men are strong and fierce and are valuable soldiers and generals in the Naga's armies. Naga women are smarter and boast a natural ability with arcane magic, and thus Naga see them as superior. Naga society are clearly matriarchal, with women assuming leadership positions and men serving them willingly. All Naga owe fealty to their queen Azshara, the same Azshara responsible for bringing the demons to Azeroth 10 millennia ago. The ancient curse worked its changes differently on Naga men and women, and their culture reflects this fact. They draw clear lines between genders. Naga men are larger and reminiscent of dragons, particularly their heads. Their bodies are powerfully muscled and often boast spikes, bony ridges, and other fierce adornments. Naga women appear almost delicate in contrast. They're slender and sinuous, more like serpents than dragons, and their faces are recognizably elf-like. Their bodies are streamlined and their movements almost sensuous. Most Naga women are born with 4 arms. Naga skin coloring varies greatly. Naga men usually have darker skin than women. Dark blues and greens are common. Naga women usually have lighter skin, often pale green, yellow, and turquoise. Naga's bellies are often lighter than their backs. Eye color is similarly varied, though green and blue are common. Naga coloration clearly reflects their oceanic ancestry. The changes wrought by the ancient arcane energy are unpredictable, and their mutative powers affect every Naga in different ways and affect some much more than others. All Naga bear unique signs of these mutations, mostly cosmetic: soft spines, tendrils, extra fins, bony plates and ridges, swirls and other markings on their skin, and the like. In some Naga, these mutations are much more pronounced and may have a useful function. The Naga capital is Nazjatar, at the bottom of the ocean in the Eye, beneath the Maelstrom. Their city is built into the cliffside and adorned with fantastic decorations. Nazjatar is in fact built upon the remains of the former Keldarai capital of Zinajari. As the Naga changed with the Sundering and evolved over the millennia, so too did their city. In current times, many Naga range out from Nazjatar. They prefer seacoasts and can be found throughout Azeroth. A group of Naga under Lady Vaj has joined Illidan's Stormrage in Outland. Their affiliation is with themselves, the Naga. Naga serve their own purposes and are united in their efforts to return their race to glory. All others, Alliance, Horde, Scourge, Legion, all the rest, are either tools to further this goal or obstacles that must be destroyed. That's a neat picture of that 4-handed girl. Girl Naga. Over the eons, Queen Azshara, the most powerful arcanist of the ancient world, has grown in power and magnificence. To the Naga, she is a living demigod, and they venerate her. Her presence in Nazjatar is a powerful motivating force for the Naga, and in their minds, Azshara, Nazjatar, and the Naga are inextricably linked. Perhaps the same thing in a way. Naga pay homage to their heritage and their queen. The beings they once revered as Keldarai, Malorn, Cenarius, even Elune, are nothing but shadows. Naga names have little in common. Some retain Keldarai traditions, taking surnames that speak to the strengths of their race. Others perform more exotic names that may have some meaning in the Naga tongue or in some other forgotten language. Still others adopt titles purely for their intimidation value to assert claims of leadership. Their names often include many sibilants, Z's and V's, Socrates, Shezri, Velrash, and they're Ursula, and they have clan names like Darkscale, Stormbow, Renclaw, Serpents. Okay, so the men gain strength but lose intellect and charisma, whereas the women are the exact opposite. They're slow on land, faster in the water, even better than Murlocs. They're considered monstrous humanoids, aquatic. They have dark vision. They are amphibious. They have natural armor because of their scales. They do have a racial bonus to the spellcrafting knowledge. They can swim, obviously. They can speak Dornassian still. They can obviously take Naga levels. As they take Naga levels, they do have a reduced amount of gold like a Murloc. They have the mutation we've talked about in previous books, where the girls can gain arcane aptitude, I guess you choose, or arcane puissance. They can develop their claws. The males can grow grow in size. They both can get hard scales. They both can have poison. They can be slippery and hard to grapple. Spell-like abilities, snake hair for the females, and they improve in their swim speed. So you get to choose. So this would actually be a fun playable class because you would choose your mutations as you go. You get stronger, and other than that, you just get better at swimming. All right, so we actually have our first flavor text. Let's read this. Broken night elves lay scattered across the ground like the remains of a meal carelessly discarded. Zajtal breathed deep. Forest smell with the tang of blood, the smell of victory. He watched his warriors slither among the wreckage, searching the bodies and ruined structures for valuables. Perhaps they'd be lucky to find the scepter they sought. Perhaps they would need to press on to destroy more of these loathsome creatures that were once his kin. Something was not right, though. Zajtal slithered away from the village to the edge of the forest. His heightened perceptions prickled. These night elves were tricky and sneaky. Some could easily hide in the forest. His eyes scoured the shadows, but he saw nothing. His grip tightened on his trident. Then he let out a growling sigh and turned, presenting his back to the trees as if disinterested. He had learned something. Oh, he'd heard something. A rush, a cry. For Pandaria! Zajtal spun and caught the edge of a slender sword between his trident's tines. He twisted, but the swordsman pulled his weapon back before Zajtal disarmed him. Zajtal slithered backward several feet to regard his opponent. Deep in shadows with a wide-brimmed hat, blotchy markings on his face. He wore a long garment and was short and stocky. You are no elf, Zajtal growled, sliding to the side, forcing his opponent to circle into the moonlight. What are you? I am Shinjo Greatpaw, creature, the swordsman replied in an odd accent. Pandaren war dancer. Shinjo exploded into motion forward and upward, slashing down at Zajtal's head as the ursine creature flipped over him. Zajtal parried and thrust up with one hand, slashing through cloth and flesh with his claws. He twisted and thrust at Shinjo's back as the Pandaren landed, but Shinjo was too quick and rolled to the side fully into the moonlight. Pandaren, Zajtal mused, gazing at his opponent and seeing the claw slashes along his belly. I have heard of your kind, but never seen one. I thought you were unaffiliated. What do you care what I do to these elves? I have friends among them, Shinjo shouted and lunged. Zajtal parried easily, once, twice. I believe, little panda, he rumbled, that you had friends among them. He parried again, thrust, but Shinjo dodged. I am Zajtal of the Naga. I believe, Shinjo said, and suddenly he was pressed against Zajtal's chest. The Naga had time to be surprised before he felt 3 feet of steel thrust to his belly. That you were Zajtal of the Naga. Shinjo twisted his blade in pain, shivered through Zajtal. The Naga clenched his teeth, blood dribbling down his jaw. We shall see, little panda. He enveloped Shinjo in a crushing embrace and twisted a bracer on his arm. The two vanished. That's cool because it came right after we finished Naga and are doing Pandaren. So they are right in the nice crux between the two races. Let's read about Pandaren now. Pandaren. Pandaren are much like furbolgs in that they display bear-like traits while being a humanoid race. While Pandaren are similar in appearance to furbolgs, they do not possess the feral qualities of the coarse furbolg race. Indeed, Pandaren are significantly calmer and more graceful. Pandaren are often found in the company of dwarves in the eastern kingdoms. Many have made journeys to Cosmodon, while Pandaren are neutral in the affairs of Horde and Alliance. They have aided both sides in matters of great importance. Yeah, it's almost like they're getting ready for Mists of Pandaria, which is like 4 years away at this point. Whatever their relation to the Alliance, it does not seem that the Pandaren will join the humans, elves, and other Alliance races in their struggle against the Horde. For the Pandaren, the internal politics of the Alliance are another noisome formality that they must endure while learning all they can of the races that occupy the land. Where the Furbolgs are broad-shouldered and muscular, powerful, and wild, Pandaren are round-shouldered with a stocky build and blunt ursine face. All Pandaren have a short, furred, soft white pelt with black markings around eyes, ears, and nose, as well as dark fur sleeves marking their arms and legs down to the prehensile paws they have for hands and their feet. They favor garments of finely wrought silk or cotton, with Pandaren aesthetics often wearing canvas cloth robes made from rice flax. The typical Pandaren male is between 5 and 6 feet in height and weighs between 200 and 300 pounds. Pandaren females are similar in stature with slighter, more feminine builds, being from 160 to 240 pounds. I like that he's like a samurai there, but I don't like, he should be a little more rounder in my opinion. Pandaren dwell in the isolated and insular reaches of Pandaria. This nation remains undiscovered to this day, but not for long. Pandaren society has changed over the course of its long history. Where once the Pandaren had a mighty empire standing proud beside their Kaldorei allies, so scholars believe, now there are simple people who want only peace and a safe home. Yet the world is a dangerous place, and only through an acceptance of the violence that comes with life can the Pandaren continue to prosper. Each Pandaren belongs to a Shaodin, which is their word for clan. Pandaren society is, in many ways, compartmentalized. At their core, the Pandaren treasure peace and creativity. Most Pandaren are poets and singers, and the craftsmen of their culture are revered. The dangers of Azeroth, however, necessitated the evolution of a class of warriors to defend those ideals. It is these warriors, from the simplest pikemen to the great Shodopans, who ensure that Pandaren culture survives. Shodopan. They're neutral. Pandaren have a fierce and deep belief in the connection of the material and spiritual worlds. In many ways, their faith mirrors the ancient beliefs of the Night Elves and the tribal beliefs of the Tauren, Troll, and Orc races. However, Pandaren veil their beliefs in the trappings of a mystical and ancient method called geomancy. That's cool. Geomancy teaches that the land is a reflection of the spirits, but that spirits are also a reflection of the land. Pandaren naming practices are similar to those of humans. Each Pandaren has a given name and a surname. The names themselves, of course, are different, and they, of course, have like Chinese backgrounds, like Chen, Polo, Xinzhou, Mushi, Wan, Shui, Zi, Ping, Mei, Jiang, Liang. Earth Song, Green Touch, Honey Brew, Light Grace, Reed Wine, Sweet Barrow, and Swift Paw. Okay, so they gain bonuses to stamina and charisma, but they lose intellect. I don't like that. They are medium-sized, regular land. They gain a little bit of natural armor. They can probably do away with that. They do gain dodge automatically. They're good at listening and spotting. They can take racial levels. As you look at them, they gain better combat experience, agility, speed, and strength. So they're kind of balanced, but focus on agility, and they can attune their defense eventually, which means they're better at avoiding blows. Yeah, that makes sense. Cool. All right, the Quillboar. I've also mentioned that I think they would be a cool playable race. Quillboar are primitive, aggressive, swine-like humanoids who live in desolate places on Kalimdor. They're large and strong, but not particularly bright, never a dominant race. In recent times, their numbers and territory have decreased further as orcs, Tauren, and other races from across the sea encroach on their land. They battle these creatures and most others ferociously. Quillboar have strong loyalty to their tribes and an ingrained desire to make their tribe, and by extension their race, as strong as possible. Their society is regimented and supports strong warriors and shaman. Males generally become warriors or shaman, while females care for young Quillboar. Resembling pigs crossed with humans, Quillboar are ugly to most other races. Their heads are those of boars, and they have dry, prickly hair that protrudes from their heads and necks. Tusks jut from their pig-like jaws. Stocky and powerful Quillboar stand 5.5 feet tall and weigh 225 pounds. Quillboar rarely wear clothes on their upper bodies, but usually wear tattered pants on their legs. Warriors wear armor, of course. As befits their name, Quillbor have a mane of sharp quills. Quillbor can fight with these quills, but prefer manufactured weapons. Most Quillbor live in the barrens of Kalimdor, though a few range farther afield. Quillbor prefer to make their homes in thickets of huge brambles. They claim that when the eternal Agamagan fell in ancient times, these brambles sprouted from the splashes of his blood. And we've read about that in various source areas. They're independent. Quillbor are fiercely territorial and attack most of the races on sight. Their mentality leaves little room for alliance with other races. The Quillbor revere Agamagan, an ancient eternal associated with the Night Elves. Quillbor believed the boar-like Agamagan was their creator, though he fell to the Burning Legion in ancient times. Quillbor shaman are common and an important element of both Quillbor society and their military, though recently rumors speak of Quillbor tribes turning to necromancy. And that's what I think the Razorfin Crawl and Razorfin Downs is about. Quillbor names are usually guttural, multisyllabic, and involve snorts and growls. Their surnames are honorific, recalling a difficult, heroic, or otherwise memorable deed that the Quillbor accomplished, such as Akrengrok, Thagmagron, Agrena, Orcbane, Razorflake, Snarlsnout. Okay, so they have racial traits. They're strong and tough, but dumb, and they have big penalties to that, to intelligence and charisma. They're medium, move normal, they have dark vision, they can scent out approaching enemies, they're considered monstrous, they get natural bonus, they're better at fighting as a pack. They do have their quills, which is like a natural weapon they can use to attack, which they can also attack in the same round that they attack with their actual weapon here. This guy has like a pick or something. They have low common. They can also possibly speak some of the other horde races. They can take levels in their own race, of course, which gives them stamina, strength, tribal defense, death boon. So they can sacrifice themselves to buff everyone around them. The greater pack fighting, an extra feat from warriors. They like to be warriors. Supreme pack fighting, ultimately. Tribal defense, when they're flanking, they get extra attacks. So they're just pack fighters. All right, satyrs. This might be our last race that we read. Satyrs are sadistic and depraved demons. Like Naga, the first satyrs were once night elves. Other races have since joined their ranks. All are now twisted and evil. They delight in bloodshed and pain. Yeah, they're so evil. I don't know if you could make a path for them to be playable. Satyrs have their genesis in the War of the Ancients. A Kaldorei named Xavius, a highborn, was one of the Queen Ajara's closest advisors. Xavius helped bring the Burning Legion to the world, and over the course of events leading up to the war fell more and more under demonic influence. He clashed with Malfurion Stormrage, and the young druid came out on top. He killed Xavius and annihilated his body. Xavius faced punishment for his failures. Sargeras tortured Xavius' disembodied spirit for a time, but eventually decided that Xavius could be of further use after all. He created a new body for Xavius, a body with cloven hooves, shaggy goat legs, goat-like horns, razor-sharp claws, and a long leonine tail. Xavius the Satyr perished in the War of the Ancients. Xavius died twice, and both times at Malfurion's hand, but satyrs revere him as their creator. As part of his corruption, Xavius could inflict other creatures with his demonic curse, and thus the satyrs came to be. These new satyrs could also pass their affliction to others, and the satyrs' ranks multiplied. In recent years, though, the curse is weakened, and thus few new satyrs appear today. Satyrs are corrupt through and through. Their greatest joy is in abandoning themselves, whatever selves still exist, to slaughter, tearing their opponents apart and reveling in the spatter of fluids and entrails. Satyrs blend recklessness and patience. They have the patience of predators and delight in the hunt, reveling in the prey's terror, but sometimes their bloodlust and sadism overtakes them. Most are rogues or tricksters and calm enough to sneak through the forest shadows toward unsuspecting travelers, but when combat is joined, they are crazed dervishes. Okay. Their society is loosely hierarchical, and they are organized into groups. Each group, called a sect, has a specific mission. Satyrs hate pretty much everyone who doesn't work to further the Legion's goals. They don't even get along with each other. However, they have a special hatred for night elves, as these creatures handed the demons their first defeat in the War of the Ancients. Satyrs resemble the creatures they once were in some respects, particularly the head and torso. However, they develop cloven hooves, furry goat legs, and a long leonine tail, elongated limbs, claws, and horns. Skin and fur color varies. Many satyrs were once night elves and are deep purple, recalling the skin tone of their former selves, but sickly yellows and dark moldy greens are also possible. This is a picture of one. It's a pretty good drawing. Um, Satyrs live in the forests in northern Kalimdor, where they've dwelt for 10 millennia. Felwood is particularly rife with them. Some also live in Deslis, halfway down Kalimdor's western coast. Rumors say that a few satyrs have established tribes in forested areas across the sea, but these stories remain unsubstantiated. Yeah, I guess they would come from high elves. They are affiliated with the Burning Legion. Satyrs are demons and members of the Burning Legion. However, they are chaotic and don't necessarily get along with each other, and different groups occasionally go to war. Satyrs have little inclination toward philosophy or religion. Healers are unknown in their society. Most satyrs venerate Xavius as their creator and patron, and satyrs give their allegiance to the Burning Legion unconditionally. Satyr naming practices are similar to those of their original race, but focus on their unique and corrupt natures. Their surnames often develop from their evil deeds, while some go without surnames. A few satyrs don't change their names after their transformations. Zalen, Delmanis, Agzor, Zydaxis, Bane Breath, Dark Thought, Vile Claw. Okay, so they gain bonuses to agility, but they lose spirit and charisma because they're evil. They're medium, regular base land speed. They're considered outsiders because they're demons. So they would have to, spells would have to target outsiders. They are chaotic, demon, evil, native. They can see 60 feet with dark vision. They have claws. They're good at surviving and tracking and stealth. They are immortal. So that means even though they never suffer the effects of aging, they get Eridune and their base race, which is probably Darnassian. They like to be rogues more than anything. Oh, I forgot there's one last race. More than anything else. And when they take extra levels, they gain a backstab, stealthy, extra agility. They can shadow meld like night elves. And then their backstab continues to increase, and they get eventually satyr finesse. So they're like good at dual wielding, and they have a wild rush, which gives them an opportunity attack. Or no. They can full attack when they charge. All right, finally, the Tuskar, last one of this chapter, this one for real. Tuskar are friendly, stout-hearted humanoids resembling walruses. They live in Northrend, and their thick bodies are well adapted to the cold winters of the region. Although peaceful, Tuskar wage constant battle against the Drakari ice trolls and Nerubians. They've thus far managed to avoid the Scourge, but the Tuskar know that eventually they must either fight them or flee. Tuskar society revolves around fishing and whaling. Not only do the Tuskar excel at these trades, but their self-contained economy is based upon these professions. Fishing and whaling are not just the mainstays of Tuskar society, but also a reflection of one's own character. Being skilled at fishing is considered evidence of good morals, whereas poor fishing is seen as evidence of a moral deficiency. Tuskar communities are not organized. Villages arise out of a need to coordinate efforts at fishing, whaling, animal husbandry, and defense rather than for political reasons. Tuskar do not have community leaders, and the family is the primary social structure. Kinship usually involves 3 generations from both the mother and father's sides. Functionally, these extended families are treated as one, so the action of any member is the responsibility of the entire group. Marriage occurs for a Tuskar man when he can support a wife, and for a Tuskar woman as soon as she reaches puberty. Tuskar law requires all Tuskar to help supply the community with food, clothing, and other necessities. Also, all Tuskar must contribute to the defense of their village. The sea is considered communal property for fishing and whaling, and catches are always divided equally among the community. Tuskar laws are simple and meant to maintain communal peace. Punishment is generally mild and involves loss of social standing through ridicule or ostracism. However, when someone takes a Tuskar's life, blood vengeance is the only allowable response. Tuskar make good heroes, while a few Tuskar leave their villages and families. A few are driven to explore the world or take more direct action against the Scourge. I think they would be great playable character races. I guess they're similar in many ways to the Pandaren, though. Tuskar are good-hearted folk who are devoted to their friends. A Tuskar makes friends easily, but takes a long time to consider a group of friends the equivalent of her family. When she does, though, these individuals have her loyalty for life. A Tuskar is a squat and muscular humanoid who has broad shoulders and a strong back. A Tuskar's face resembles that of a walrus. It is blunt and almost hairless, with 2 long tusks that extend down from her upper jaw. Tribal carvings of reds, blues, and greens adorn her tusks. Most Tuskar wear thick oilskin jackets. Almost looks Dr. Seussian, like the Lorax right there. Tuskar dwell along Northrend's coast, where they have several villages. These small communities, which bustle with activity, are scattered across the icy beaches. The center of the Tuskar civilization is Kaskala, a cluster of villages in the Borean tundra. They are independent. Tuskar have little contact with anyone, and they long ago learned to fend for themselves and survive the harsh conditions of Northrend. Though their economy is self-contained and they do not need the fabricated goods other races offer, the Tuskar friendly and peaceable nature allows them to deal with people from both the Alliance and the Horde. Traders offering goods the Tuskar cannot manufacture are especially welcome in their villages. Most Tuskar get along well with dwarves, gnomes, and goblins, whom they respect for their ingeniousness. They treat humans and orcs with respect, but are suspicious of elves and trolls. The Tuskar picture the afterlife as a place with plentiful catches and successful whaling with minimal work. Tuskar have simple rituals relating to social functions rather than religious circumstances. Birth, marriage, healing a sickness, and death cause the most prominent ceremonies. Other rituals relate to celebrating a good catch and venerating those who were lost at sea or who fell in battle. Tuskar shaman influence the weather, cure the sick, and facilitate the gathering of food. They hold an important place in society. Shamanic magic is quite a production, and most shaman perform elaborate rites while casting spells. Even something like curing the sick is a remarkable event. The shaman may speak with ghosts of the patient's relatives and even battle other spirits into submission before forcing them to help heal the patient. Tuskar names derive from ancient words no longer in use in their own tongue. These words have hidden meaning none but the Tuskar understand. Because family is of prime importance to their society, Tuskar family names take precedence over the names of the individuals. Kind of like, what is it that does that? Maybe Japan? Thus, Tuskar family names are stated before an individual's personal name, and most Tuskar who travel outside their own communities are known simply by such a name. Tuskar family names are ancient and sacred. The meaning of the family's name is related to some important characteristic or great historic deed. A Tuskar's father gives his family name to his child, but the mother picks out a personal name for her son or daughter shortly after birth. Tuskar family names are long and complex, while personal names are short and simple. The meaning of a personal name relates to one of the child's personality or physical traits. Bok, Darji, Jurg, those are some personal names, and their family names would be Anavolden, Luposul, Moondral. They gain stamina, lose intellect. They're medium. They gain natural armor because of their blubber, regular land speed. They are pretty good with nets. They gain bonuses to saves against cold. They're good at fishing. They can possibly speak Zendali. They can, of course, take racial classes. Not racial classes, racial levels in their class. To do so, they gain extra natural armor, further resistance to cold, strength, and stamina. So not a lot of interesting things. And then they finish off with a table in giving you the ages, the effects of aging, when are they considered old, and their height and weight, in case you wanted to randomize those things. Notably, I would say the Naga reach adulthood at 500 years, and Satyr are immortal, so they don't have any maximum age. So 25 times 100. So Naga can easily live over 3,000 years. Plus 4d%. So what? Yeah, they will live up to 400. Dark Iron Dwarfs, add another couple hundred on. Murlocs are venerable at 60. All right, cool. So we got another episode in the pipe, 5x5. As always, I thank everyone so much for watching and for listening, and I hope you enjoyed the start of this final World of Warcraft role-playing game book. See you next time on Lore of Warcraft.